Before you can begin writing your focusing question task, you need to look at your content framing question and then also do a little bit of organizing. Your content framing question for this lesson, which is the whole purpose and the things that you're going to do in order to build up to the final task, would be how do informational texts about the war build my knowledge of reasons for joining World War I? So we're going to use our text to show how those texts helped us understand why people and countries joined World War I. So everything that you've done in the last week and a half is going to be kind of put together in one place. Before we get into the formal writing, you're going to need handout 5A, which is in your orange spiral book. And there's actually two different handouts, 5A, but the one that we're going to start with first is the one that's actually in your orange spiral book, and it is the one that says Collect Evidence to Perspectives. It looks like this. Let me flip over my screen real quick. Looks like this in your spiral book. There's going to be another one, handout 5A, and it's not in your book. I've made a copy for you, but that's not what you're going to need just yet. So let's talk about this handout 5A, Collect Evidence to Perspectives. This is where you're going to use your notes, your annotations, and your text to help kind of put everything that you might need and organize it logically. It's kind of like your pre-writing, just maybe a little bit more advanced pre-writing than a web or a list, because we're going to kind of guide your thinking and help organize some of your thoughts so that when you get into the formal writing, it's a little more developed and not as heavy into what do I write about, because you've collected all of your stuff in one spot. So let's review this real quick, and then I will talk about your task in just a second. This should take you, if you do it well, no less than 15 minutes. If it takes you longer than 15 minutes, that's fine. I'd rather you take your time and make sure that you have good evidence and good responses to help you create a better and well-written response on the next task. So don't think that this is just busy work. There is a purpose to this, but I want you to take it seriously, so don't rush it. If it takes you longer than 15 minutes, that's fine. Should it take you 80? No. But could it take you 30? Possibly. It just depends on how well you did the readings and the activities as I designed them and implemented them. So if you followed through those videos, especially those of you with Mrs. Miller, if you went through the videos and listened to me rant and talk for much longer than anybody probably should ever want to listen to me. But regardless, if you did everything I asked and put those things in those books and took the time to write a good response and you read the articles along with me or by yourself, then this shouldn't be too difficult. If you didn't do those things, you're going to probably struggle a little bit and do a lot of that heavy lifting now versus when we did it prior. So in order to do this, you're going to need those texts as well. So the nice part is, with this handout being in your orange spiral book, two of the texts that you're going to use are in the orange spiral book, and that was the War to End All Wars and the Peace President Goes to War. You're also going to need the Teenage Soldiers of World War I. Remember, I made that as a Google Doc. You should have made a copy of it and even annotated it. And then for lesson 4, earlier this week or yesterday, depending on when you're doing this task, you need Your Country Needs You. Why did so many volunteer in 1914? And that should be a stapled doc. So 2 of them are in the orange spiral book. 1 was a Google Doc, and 1 was a stapled paper. As you're collecting your evidence and you're completing this task, you can just write phrases You don't have to write complete sentences through this, especially since your space there isn't a lot of space. And the idea is just to kind of gather your information here. You're going to write the more formal, fully developed stuff on the next task. So if you notice, I've got questions. There's got questions on one side, and then the evidence that you're completing. So what do I need to know? So who was involved? When did they join? Why did they join? Who was their what was their motivation? And this is about, this first part is particularly about the British men. And remember, there were 3 examples alone in the Teenage Soldier one, but in the Teenage Soldier one, we also got the more specifics as to those motivators as to why men in general, not specifically those 3, joined. Kind of evidence could help me answer this question. Remember, there's 6 types of evidence: facts, statistics, definitions, brief explanation, first-person account, and the argumentative claim or opinion. And then, what information did you find? So, who was involved? So that last column is you getting specific. When did they join? Did they join at a certain age? Did they join at a certain time period? That kind of thing. Things here are kind of open and endless. I don't want to guide your thinking or give you an answer. I want you definitely to do this and do this well so that you are getting the most out of it. The second part is now you looking at the United States. So you're going to do the same thing, only now instead of looking at individuals or a person, a specific person or clientele, you're looking at a country. And this one we're going to look at United States. And then who was involved, when did they join, and why did they join? What was their motivation? So you're looking at same questions, but being more specific, British men versus the United States. Once you complete this, then you need to get the handout 5A that's separate. I know we got 2, right? 2 5As. But this one, the other 5A, is assessment. So you got the assessment 5A, whereas the one that was in your notebook or in your spiral book was handout 5A. So this is assessment 5A, focusing question task 1. So this is where all of that stuff that we did is going to help you answer this. So your ultimate question is, why did countries and individuals join World War I? And that's been the content task, content framing question, or focusing question task for these modules, or these lessons in this module so far. So it says, over the last 4 lessons, you have been introduced to the events that led to the start of World War I. You've read articles and viewed images that explain the start of the conflict in Europe and the responses of people from Britain and the United States. The purpose of this task is for you to explain the cause and effect relationship between the start of the war and the immediate or delayed involvement in the conflict. Keep in mind, the U.S. delayed their involvement. Why? So hopefully you've got that in your notes. Your task. The date is April 2nd, 1917, and the United States has declared war on Germany. 3 years prior, Britain declared war on Germany. You're going to write 2 paragraphs that explain 2 perspectives on the reasons for joining the war. First, explain why so many British men joined the fight in the World War I. And second, the reasons the United States has decided to declare war at this particular moment. So you're going to have 1 paragraph just about the British men, 1 paragraph about the United States. If you have more, that's fine, but there should not be anything less than 2. You're going to write for an audience that has limited understanding of World War I. So kind of like you guys when we started this. I didn't expect you all to be history buffs and not know a lot about World War I. So you're going to pretend that the person that you're writing for has a limited understanding of World War I. You're going to develop your reasonings using 2 effective types of evidence, those 6 types that you should have listed in your notes on the T-chart from lesson 4. From 2 texts in the focusing question sequence that most strongly support the explanation of the British and American decisions to fight in World War I.